In Germany, in 1923, there was a brief, glorious window of time when the best toy you could give a child was cash. German money had lost so much purchasing power that stacking it into building blocks was genuinely the most useful thing you could do with it. If you needed bread, you brought a wheelbarrow, not to carry the groceries, to carry the money. One completely full wheelbarrow for one loaf. And if you stopped to chat with a neighbor on the way to the bakery, the price would go up before you arrived. Buried inside this economic farce is the timeline of a democratic collapse, the moment a modern, educated nation began the slide toward the deadliest conflict in human history. That slide didn't begin with a sudden outburst of hatred. It began with arithmetic, specifically a series of catastrophic miscalculations. To understand how Germany ended up wallpapering rooms with currency, we have to rewind to 1919 and a gathering called the Treaty of Versailles. Germany had just lost World War I, and when you lose a world war, the winners like to send a bill. Germany's bill, finalized in 1921, came to 132 billion gold marks in reparations. That was roughly equivalent to several $100 billion today, owed by a country whose economy was already flattened by 4 years of conflict. The government had two options to pay this debt. Option 1, raise taxes dramatically, asking an already furious, war-exhausted population to tighten their belts, to fund the countries that just demolished half their cities. This was extremely unpopular. Option 2, print more money. Germany picked option 2. The central bank, the Reichsbank, fired up the printing presses and started issuing more marks to cover both their government spending and their massive war reparations. Printing money to solve a massive debt crisis is like trying to fix a flat tire by letting the air out of the other three. It feels like a quick relief in the moment, but it mathematically guarantees a much larger, catastrophic collapse just a short distance down the road. I promise this is the only economics lecture in the entire video. When a government prints more money without producing more physical goods and services to match it, each individual unit of that money loses value. More cash chasing the same number of loaves of bread means each loaf costs more cash. That is the basic definition of inflation. At first, the inflation was annoying but manageable. Then came 1923. France and Belgium, tired of waiting on reparations that Germany increasingly couldn't pay, occupied Germany's most productive industrial region, the Ruhr Valley, to extract resources directly. German workers in the Ruhr responded with mass strikes and passive resistance. This chart shows the exchange rate between the US dollar and the German mark. In 1918, $1 bought about 4 marks. By the end of 1922, it bought around 400 marks. The currency was losing value, but the line represents a slow, steady curve. But when those strikes hit the Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heartland essentially stopped making things. With less stuff being produced, the government printed even more money just to pay the striking workers. You have a collapsing supply of goods hitting a massive spike in printed currency. That is exactly where the curve begins to accelerate rapidly. By November 1923, the exchange rate rockets violently off the scale, hitting 4.2 trillion marks for a single dollar. In 5 years, the German currency had lost its value 1 trillion times over. At this mathematical extreme, daily life turns into a farce. Restaurant patrons developed a specific habit. They would order 2 beers at the start of a meal instead of 1. If you waited until you finished your first beer to order the second, the price would have already doubled. The physical value of paper had entirely inverted. By late 1923, it was actually cheaper to burn money for heat than to buy firewood. Germans were keeping their houses warm by setting their currency on fire, and they were making a financially sound decision by doing it. There is a famous story of a thief who stole a basket overflowing with cash from a woman on the street. He dumped every single banknote onto the pavement and ran off with just the basket. The container was worth more than the nation's legal tender. To keep up with the chaos, the government actually issued a banknote with a face value of 50 trillion marks. A single piece of paper bearing the number 50 trillion, which was suddenly worth less than the ink printed on it. When a national currency ceases to function as money at all, the entire concept of a functional society collapses into an absurd daily scramble. But I want to pause the jokes here. Wheelbarrows and wallpapered cash are historically hilarious facts, but underneath those absurd anecdotes is a reality that destroyed everyday lives. Hyperinflation does not hurt everyone equally. If you had major debt, like a mortgage, the crisis practically erased what you owed, making speculators very rich. But if you had done everything society tells you to do responsibly, teachers, pensioners, careful savers who kept money in a bank, you were completely wiped out. Imagine working your entire life, building a secure pension, only to watch that lifetime of hard-earned savings evaporate into less value than a single loaf of bread. It happened in a matter of months. When an entire generation of responsible people is financially ruined through no fault of their own, it breeds something highly dangerous. It creates the corrosive belief that the democratic system itself is rigged, broken, and completely incapable of protecting its people. Down in Munich, there was a fringe, fairly unimpressive politician leading a small, ignored party. His name was Adolf Hitler. Before 1923, his extreme message of blame had little traction. But as the economy imploded, he suddenly found a desperate, highly receptive audience looking for someone to punish. In November 1923, right at the peak of the hyperinflation crisis, Hitler and his armed supporters launched what was essentially a comically disorganized attempt to overthrow the local government, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The coup collapsed within a single day. People were killed in the streets, and Hitler fled before being arrested for treason. By all normal political logic, this failure should have permanently ended his career. Instead, his 1924 trial provided a massive, sympathetic national platform. Given hours to speak in an open courtroom, he blamed the Weimar government and the Treaty of Versailles for the country's severe economic misery, and newspapers broadcast his message across Germany. While Hitler's final rise to power was still a decade away, the 1923 hyperinflation provided the platform that turned an obscure Munich agitator into a national figure. Germany's hyperinflation is universally treated as a historical punchline, but these stories represent a highly dangerous, repeatable pattern. When a currency completely stops making sense, citizens lose faith in their physical money, and then they lose faith in their institutions. That loss of trust opens a vacuum, ensuring the angriest, most extreme voices finally get a captive audience. The initial joke of 1923 was the wheelbarrow full of worthless trash, but the ultimate punchline took a decade to arrive, and it resulted in the darkest chapter in human history.